And we're all bright and early. Good morning. Welcome to your perfect day starter, the Morning Brief. We're live for you here in Lagos, and I'm Kayode Okikelu.
And it's a beautiful day. We're grateful for clement weather, and we call it what it is, a beautiful day. No rains. Maybe sunshine will come in the day, but let's be your sunshine. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka.
I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us on the program. February is about to be over. We're about to get into the last month of the first quarter of the year. Right? Okay. Just a reminder, basically. Guys, what's going on?
I can almost guess what Bukola is tracking today. The price of petrol. Yes or yes?
She likes petrol a lot.
Not necessarily.
I mean, it's inevitable. Everybody, I mean, petrol touches you. I always say that there's a smell of petrol in almost everything, in the food, because when petrol price goes up, it affects literally everything. So you can literally smell petrol.
No, not
today.
Not particularly. I think it's because I wear my emotion on my sleeves most of the time, so you can hear what's in my heart.
So did I get it? Am I correct?
Petrol is just one of the many issues.
Okay, let's get into it.
Well, at least when they rebase the CPI, they also added, I think, energy index. You know, There were just a few indexes, like the headline, core, food, urban, rural. They will have energy. We have, I think, 3 other indexes that we can now look at, including some elements of importation and all of that. But for me, not just petrol I'm tracking. I'm just worried about the state of quote-unquote natural food in Lagos. I don't know what is going on, but you buy plantain, ripe plantain today, by tomorrow it has turned black. You buy fruits in Lagos, sometimes you don't even trust what you're eating. So I ask questions about why these things are. They say for the fruits that need to maybe get ripen, there's a way to preserve them with all sorts of chemicals, and I don't think it's a very good thing. I think NAFDAC, NAFDAC should look into that direction. I know they're fighting drug abuse, they're fighting all sorts of drug-related issues, but part of their work is also food administration and control. The level of fake or forced procedure to make sure these things get ripened is really, really alarming. I think the authorities should look into it, guys.
And it's quite concerning that the DG is saying something that we should all pay attention to this morning, talking about threats to her life. Perhaps we'll get into the conversation much later on. But Kayode is about 90% right about what I'm tracking. Yes, indeed, 65 Naira reduction in the price of petrol announced by Dangote refinery. And, this says quite a lot about, what seems to be the price war between our homegrown refinery, Dangote refinery, and the state-owned oil company, the NNPCL. As at the last we checked, there was a reduction just about 2 weeks ago. So in about 20 days plus, there's been over 100 Naira reduction in the price of petrol, as announced by Dangote refinery. So where does this leave the price war? And recall that there's also some form of litigation ongoing about licenses issued, to petrol importers, because Dangote is saying that it has the capacity to meet the country's domestic needs. Of course, there's also the Warri refinery and the Port Harcourt refinery that have begun working. And just last week, Ipman was announcing support, asking importers to patronize those refineries such that the pump price of petrol can be reduced in particularly those states, that are hosting those refineries. So it's cheery to note, but it can go further down because of where we're coming from. And I'm sure that will, gladden the hearts of Kayode and Jeffrey, and of course those of you watching this morning as well. But that's not the only thing that I'm tracking. Also, the APC has finally held its NEC meeting, but I'll leave that for the guys, to reflect on.
Well, I've left it for the politicians. We'll talk about that. But just rule of thumb: wash your fruits as soon as you buy them. Wash it very well. So you can use vinegar, you could use salt solution. Just make sure you wash it so that it washes all the chemicals. I mean, these things are given, sadly. So just wash it that way. It removes at least a good percentage of those things. And for the price of petrol, Bukola, I don't know which of the where we're coming from you want us to go back to. Is it the origin? Is it 200s, or at least if
is it digging out of the hole or surface from the?
Is it 500?
It doesn't have to be 200. Maybe 500.
Maybe 500.
May 29, 2023.
The challenge now, and that's the fear for a lot of people, is they suspect that if we keep going down this route, naturally all attention will turn to Dangote. This is for Dangote, as Bukola said. So all attention will shift. Importation, as people are saying, should stop, right? So that give us a monopoly of some sense, because I don't think NNPC Limited can compete with Dangote. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, I'm not sure they can compete. Clearly, in terms of capacity and output, they can't compete. And other things that we've seen as well, hopefully they surprise me. So that's just the voice being heard this morning. But Jeffrey,
I just feel that the NNPCL should, Mr. Shoney, this is directly at him, because that is his job. It's not just about coming to debunk when people have done their own personal experiment that we could see with our eyes. And I like to use the word witnesses of your personal experience. That one, no data can change it for me. MBS cannot near that. The guy did that experiment, and all Mr. Shoney and the NNPCL did was to bring out the statement. If you see the way the national grid communicators on X, they communicate like per hour. It's just impressive. I'm not saying the power situation. I'm already angry that I'm in Band A, so that's... But at least, if you go to their handle, you can follow up what is going on within that sector, that particular subsector of the power chain. But what is going on with the NNPCL in terms of Port Harcourt and Warri refinery? They don't communicate. They don't communicate. So whatever people conjecture or think about you, I'm sorry, it is what it is. So do better. When are you going to reduce your own price? Are you still producing as much as you should? What is going on with those refineries? If somebody brings an expose now to say, oh, something is going on in Warri, all their guns will come out and they will start debunking and refuting. Be ahead of the game. That's why you're the communication director. That's what it works. The reason I'm passionate about it is because that is our state institution. Dangote refinery is a private refinery. Yeah. He can choose to do whatever he wants to do. It's his refinery. And we thank him for his contribution. We don't also want a monopoly. But the man or the refinery communicates time and again. Yeah. And we see it. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on this matter.
There you go. So what do we have on the show this morning? Naturally, our first port of call is Kano State, where the State Police Command has arrested 17 suspects allegedly involved in a potential violent protest. You could hear some of the protesters saying, no, we're not. Was it arrogant? That's the word that one of them used. But we'll be speaking to the command's public relations officer to get more details on that event today.
And that's not all. We'll also be touching on a subject very important as far as, our political landscape is concerned, as Nigeria continues to find lasting solutions to its long-standing electoral challenges. We'll be taking a look at the reforms that need to be made, as well as ways to avoiding recurring issues. Of course, the Executive Director of Yaga Africa, Samson Itudo, joins us on the program for insights.
And we'll also zoom in on what is considered the poster project or initiative of this government, if you will, policy, because it is backed by legislation. NEL Fund, this education loan fund that provides some level of intervention for students to pay their tuition and their running costs. We'll talk with the person in charge to bring us up to speed as to what is the success, or what are the successes recorded so far, what are the challenges, what should we be looking forward to in 2025.
Well, the goal is to try and keep the students in school. There's someone also trying to keep our heritage, or at least preserve it. So we go over to the arts, where we speak with Halima Abubakar, a photographer and artist who is dedicating her craft to promoting and preserving cultural heritage.
Beautiful. Looking forward to that conversation, as well as this one. We'll be having some virtual fun this morning. Do you know about Limbo dance? Well, Kingfish joins us from Canada to tell us how he's transforming lives through the power of Limbo dancing. Somebody's about to show some skills this morning.
The question is, how low can you go?
Bend low.
So we want to pair the limbo dance with the price of petrol this morning. So the lower you go, Bukola, the lower the price of petrol.
No, Jeffrey is the one that's going to go low this morning.
Is he going to play my village song?
we can work around
it. The mood. Play my village song. All right, so that's not all. Remember, you can be part of the conversation. All you have to do is to go to XCTV Morning Brief and post there, and we'll get it out and amplify your voices. Also on our WhatsApp portal, you can send your messages and your videos as well. But let's get to
don't forget the email as well. At the morning brief at channelstv.com. You'll see that all of the information you see just right there as you see it on the screen.
Okay, so let's get to the dailies now. Beginning with the Guardian newspaper. Boldly, their second term is already in the works. So the second term literally started as soon as the first term started. Okay, so the Guardian is leading with that amid row. APC NEC passes votes of confidence on Tinubu and Ganduje. APC NEC passes vote of confidence on Tinubu and Ganduje. So you can see, finally, after almost 2 years, I think it's about 18 months, they've been able to put their acts together to hold a NEC meeting. I was listening to Felix Moka yesterday trying to defend why NEC meeting has not been held. And I was like, you're a lawyer, Mr. Felix Moka. NEC meeting is a law. So you walk around the law. The law doesn't walk around you. But that's another kettle of fish. At least we congratulate them. And we're waiting for the PDP and the rest of the parties to also hold their NEC. But part of what was done yesterday was the president giving the party giving an account, and the president also bringing them up to speed with what is done. There were a couple of people that were not present. Former President Muhammadu Buhari. I don't think I saw Yemi Oshibajo. I stand to be corrected. Rotimi Amechi, of course, Nasser El-Rufai has already said he's going to be there. But within those internal wrangling that they have, they've been able to put the NEC together, and they've actually passed a vote of confidence on the president and, of course, Ganduje. And some people are saying, why are they passing a vote of confidence on the president? What should they have done?
I think it's simple. You pass a vote of confidence on someone or a group you suspect has lost the confidence, of the people. I don't know. You give a medication to someone who's ill, right?
Who's ill, right?
And
you pass that confidence on when you feel there's lack of confidence.
And sometimes when your own confidence is hinged upon the confidence that you need to pass on the person that you're passing it to, you just have no choice but to pass the vote of confidence on them, so that your confidence in the future can be guaranteed.
Brilliant.
It's a tricky one, but let's see how it plays out. The party, of course. You know how politicians are. I'm not necessarily talking about the APC. I have seen, it's just I cannot say it on air, Kayode and Bukola. I have seen people that were horrible governors, leaders of this country. They should never even have led a local government polling unit, but they did 2 terms because the party gives them ticket. You understand? So it's a culture of parties to always support their own. But let's go to something beneath that, which had to do with NAFDAC boss raising alarm about threats after historic 1 trillion illicit drugs seizure. This territory is a very, very slippery slope. We've been here before. We cannot go through this route again. She's doing her job, and I know she knows that this job is quite risky at the end of the day. But threatening her life or doing her job, it doesn't make sense to me. So we're going to continue to support NAFDAC to do the right thing. I remember the late Dora Akunyili also faced this kind of situation where she was almost killed. In fact, I think her husband was also killed at some point. I can't remember that fact.
That's a bit further down the line.
Further down the line, but
a couple of years ago. But she did talk about losing some family members, during her lifetime. So, Jeffrey, really, you're right. It's like deja vu. How, that office seems to be the one placed on the hot seat, with threats and concerns about, the efficacy of the helmswoman, repeatedly now doing their jobs and doing it well, but facing stiff opposition. But we hope that the administration looks into this and gives her all of the support.
She should be protected. These women are doing their bit. We should continue to protect them. Kayode Kola, you have the next one.
Well, let's head over to the next paper this morning, and it will be the Nigerian News Direct, which also trails with the APC NEC meeting, and the headline is reassuring, but debatably. I don't know what you think about it. Be calm. I won't let you down. Tinubu tells aggrieved APC leaders. And there are a host of riders there. Approves Reconciliation Committee, relocation of Buhari House. There's more. Ganduje reveals how he inherited 8.9 billion naira debt as APC chair. And that was the crux of some of the conversation again yesterday. This was incurred from litigation. So it's quite telling about how much political parties, particularly the big parties, are spending on litigation to retain offices, to conduct primaries. Should we be looking into their books? Kadi and Jeffrey,
it's
I don't know.
It's job to look into their books, not
why?
our job.
On the flip side, is business for lawyers.
Yeah. This money is going
so we should look away and mind our business.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying that it's what it is. That's why you find, some lawyers would give advice and you're like, this matter shouldn't get to court. You should just tell your client to settle out of court or just overlook it. But no, sir, I think we can go to court on this one. Let's go to court.
There's always a reason to go to court.
Nah, it doesn't work like that.
Some will charge as much as 100 million naira, 50 million naira.
But if it's election petition, oh dear.
So I'm wondering,
a lot.
Sometimes does the litigation for specific candidates come from the fees for the litigation come from their pocket, or does it come from the political party?
So if you look at charge sheets, you will see that for political jurisprudence, for instance, you have candidates, you have the institution, which is the political party, and you have all of even INEC spends money as well. As long as you're part, whether you're the plaintiff or you're the defendant and your name is mentioned, you should appear in court, and it's not free. So these are the reasons why they spend a lot of money. It's not easy. I think Toston Eko, who said been running for governorship, he spent, I stand to be corrected, somewhere within the range of 15 billion. So the party spends, the candidate spends, there's a lot of spending, trust me. There's a lot of spending. There's an economy of election itself.
Why parties are named as defendants and candidates who are named as defendants.
Because the party sponsors the candidate, actually.
Yeah.
That's what the law says.
Interesting. So we need to look into their books. If you wonder why there is underdevelopment in the land, look at some of these things. Kade, you have the next one.
Daily Independent leads with the APC NEC yet again, and this is another angle to it of sorts. You see, Tinubu woos aggrieved members, gets second-term endorsement, says Nigerian economy on path to recovery and all of that. But you see, just the last one, party wants El-Rufai, says criticisms would invite responses. So what does that response mean? What does it look like? When will it come? Because he had said that I think the APC has left him. But they don't sound like they have left him. Because there's, if this is anything to go by, they are still with him or talking about him. So we'll see how all of that plays out. But I just want to mention that right here you see Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, ECOWAS exit, increasing Nigeria military burden. That's according to the air chief. So that's another implication of that whole exit, which I'm not sure why it should be, because you are not exiting territorially in that sense. You still have to collaborate when it comes to military efforts, fight against banditry. So I'm surprised that this is coming up, but more details on the inside pages of the Daily Independent.
Absolutely. So let's get to this. Nigeria says fake drug barons after my life. NAFDAC DG cries out. Discloses seizure of over 1 trillion naira worth of expired drugs. Advocates death penalties for fake counterfeit drugs peddlers. Agency engages over 1,000 security operatives to raid warehouses. I read all these riders and I say to myself, this is the right way to go. But apparently, just like in every society, whatever are the shortfalls or the gaps within a society is somebody's industry. So those who gain from this wickedness, because there's no other way to describe this thing that she's fighting, when people put, I even heard there was somebody, there's a drug, this thing they use for POP, they'll fill it in capsules and sell it as a drug. What is worse than Boko Haram? And that's why she's saying if a child dies as a result of some of these fake drugs, he should also die. The person should be sentenced to death if found guilty. So she's doing all the right things. That's why we would appeal to the federal government to really help protect this lady. Women have fought this, which is why some of us are advancing that we should give women even a 4-year chance and then help us sanitize this system. We saw Okonjo-Iweala, her life was threatened because her mother was kidnapped because of the transparency she brought to the finances of the federal government. We can go to what's the Dora Akunyili that was shot literally and almost killed, and now NAFDAC DG, the current one, is also crying out. So she should be protected at all costs.
You can't say that enough. And of course, you can also be part of the conversation this morning. The handle to go to would be at CTV Morning Brief on X, where you can share your thoughts. Of course, don't forget we also have our email. It will be displayed on your screen shortly. And don't forget, our WhatsApp handle is also there for your questions, your concerns, and of course, anything happening in real time in your community. You know, we are the trusted channel to go to amplify and make your authentic voices known across the globe. So it's a perfect morning starter, ready to unfold. In just a bit, we'll take a break now. When we return, we'll begin with that very important conversation. What's happening in Kano as far as protest is concerned? We understand the police is reining on the situation, and we'll be talking with the Kano State Police Command. So join us again. We'll be right back.
We'll begin with our conversation in Kano State, where we understand the police has arrested some persons who are planning to protest. The details is going to be brought to the fore by the police PRO, who is joining us from Kano, Mr. Abdullahi Kiyawa. Mr. Kiyawa, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
So bring us up to speed. Maybe for those who are not familiar with this story and what is really going on, who are these protesters? Why do they want to protest? And why did the police rain in on them?
In the evening hours of Tuesday, 25th February, the police command in Kano, as well as other security agencies, received intelligent reports that some people are planning to attack Nasarawa Palace, where Emir Aminu Adebayo reside. And part of their plan is to stage a protest and disguise as protesters. So on this, the police command deployed adequate security personnel and assets in collaboration with other security agencies, because the plan of the protest was to hold yesterday on Wednesday, 26th. So adequate security deployments were carried out at strategic locations within Kano State, especially the two palaces where the two emirs reside, the government house, as well as other strategic locations where the government infrastructures are. So as a result of these adequate deployments and the proactive measures taken by the security agencies in Kano, on the spot when these protesters started converging at some locations, especially under Nasarawa Bridge, 17 of them were apprehended, and weapons such as knives were recovered from them. Currently, all these suspects arrested have been transferred to the Command Criminal Investigation Department, after which they will be charged to court upon completion of the investigation.
All right, Mr. Kiyawa, so what exactly are they protesting for? Are they protesting against, or what exactly is the core of the issue here? Does it have to do with the emirship? What exactly is playing out here?
Based on the reports we obtained and the intelligence gathered, they are planning to attack the Nasarawa Palace. And that is why they wanted and planned to disguise as protesters in order to achieve what they planned for. So you can see it's a purely issue that has to do with Emirates, and the command have commenced investigation into this matter.
But these people say they are students. When we spoke to them yesterday, they said they are students and they just wanted to protest peacefully.
I think those arrested, some of them were arrested with weapons, and among them, no single student that was arrested. Currently, the preliminary investigation began yesterday, and they are being profiled, and the investigation is ongoing, after which we will brief you before charging them to court as well.
All right, so now that you've arrested, I think you said almost 20 of them, initial reports had it 17. Or how many do you have now?
17.
Exactly, 17. I imagine that you've processed them. I imagine that there's been interrogation. Who is behind this? Who sent them to protest, if someone sent them? And what is their mission? What do you hear from them?
That is why I said investigation is ongoing. And before they are charged to court, you will be briefed on the update of this case.
Okay, so as it is now, how soon are they going to court?
After the investigation is completed. But however, we have to use this opportunity and urge the public in the state to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activities to the security agency.
The reason I'm asking is because my colleague had asked you, they are saying that there are students and the law is quite clear on how long you can hold someone in detention except you get a court order to continue to hold them. So just to make sure that the police authority itself is following the rule of law.
As soon as possible, they will be charged to court for completion of the investigation.
Mr. Kiawa, it's not a convenience of as soon as possible. How soon will you charge them to court? What you're alleging against them is quite serious, and also their rights have to be protected. That's why I double down on that question.
When we say investigation, of course we are very much aware of the provisions of detaining suspects. And as I'm telling you now, all efforts are in place to ensure that this investigation is completed. We will, of course, feed you on the update as soon as possible. Investigation is not something that you can decide on your own. It depends on the case and what you are looking for. Where investigation is concluded in time, you charge the case to court. And where you need to charge the suspect to court and continue with your investigation, it is going to be done. So this one, I'm not the one that decides the timing of when the case will be charged to court. Is based on the investigation, and of course you will know that very soon.
So just to be clear, the Nasarawa Palace is where you have, just for people who are wondering, what is Nasarawa Palace? Who is in Nasarawa Palace?
All the two palaces have been fortified to ensure no security breach. But based on the intelligence obtained, these protesters, of course, they were arrested while moving towards the Nasarawa Palace. And as I'm telling you, some were also arrested with weapons. So after completion of the investigation, you get all. Nasarawa Palace, as asked, is where the Emir Aminu Ado Bayero, which I already stated, reside.
So there's a lot of back and forth. People saying the APC hired thugs allegedly. Some say no, it was the NNPP that hired thugs allegedly. Would you be able to come out with a comprehensive result of your investigation as to who is responsible? Can we trust you to do that?
Yes, what will determine that is the investigation, which of course we are on it now. I will let you know after completion of the investigation.
All right, Mr. Abdullahi Kiawa, we'll hold you to your words. Thank you so much for coming. Eyes are also there to make sure that we follow through what is happening in Kano. Abdullahi Kiawa is the Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian Police Command in Kano State. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Well, it's never too early to start troubleshooting our electoral process. After all, the politicians have already started preparing for the elections. In fact, they started from day one for those who won elections. And for those who lost, of course, you can understand that they regrouped already. And they're trying to get that #1 seat, depending on where it is they're running for. So how well are we doing regarding election management? Well, Yaga Africa has been tracking this for as long as we can remember, and they have some more updates the outcome of a lot of work they've done, just trying to look at the system, the flaws, the strengths, and how we can build on Nigeria's democracy by way of our elections. We're joined on the program by the Executive Director of IAGA Africa, Samson Itoto, who's live for us in our Abuja studio. You're welcome to the Morning Brief, Samson. As I said earlier on, it's never too early to start preparing and troubleshooting elections. So are you trying to beat the politicians to their game as well, so our electoral process is ready for whatever it is they may be planning as well, Samson?
Well, we're not trying to beat the politicians to their game. We're just trying to protect Nigeria's democracy and, more importantly, give citizens the confidence that their votes count, that in a democracy, people matter. And we're just about 723 days to the 2027 elections. 2025 is a very critical year because we're just 2 years down the line. This week, you know, a few days ago was 25th of February, and that marks 2 years after the 2023 elections, and it's just 2 years to the 2027 elections, because the 2027 elections will hold, we believe, on the 20th of February. So it's preparation time, and that's why at the IAGA Africa we've been studying what really happened in the 2023 elections as it relates to citizens' participation or voter turnout. And we're asking the question whether Nigerians are voting and how many of them are showing up to vote at elections, with a view, you know, to ensuring that more people turn up to vote. As you can see from the screen, in the last election in 2023, we recorded the lowest turnout in our history. And that is very, very sad because that's an election where Nigeria spent huge amounts of money, over 300 billion naira. It was an election, you know, that we all were very expectant, and there were lots of reforms introduced before the election.
So Samson, just quickly,
today.
Right, pardon me. Before we get deeper into the figures, something for me is conspicuously missing, and you forgive me for bringing it up. It's because of some of the old wounds that were opened recently. I know you're going back to 1999, but for some people, it goes back to 1993. Right. So I don't know if there's some sort of nexus we can get from the 1993 elections. Yes, so you're not trying to beat them to it, but obviously the 1993 elections should also be sort of relevant now that there's been some sort of admittance, well, no apology. So does this in any way matter when you look at the election journey of Nigeria? If you catch my drift here, we'll still talk about your data, but I just wanted to situate that 1993 election and IBB's recent book.
No, when you look at the 1993 elections, it started as one of the, you know, most credible in our history. But when you compare in terms of turnout, if you compare the 1993 elections down till date, in fact, we went as far back as 1979. When you look at the full report, which we released today on voter turnout, the highest that we have recorded was in 2003, where we had 61% turnout. So when you think about turnout, it wasn't as high as 2003. But when you look at the quality of the elections, and some have talked about option A4, for that time it was perhaps the best procedure to guarantee, you know, that citizens participate, and that the outcome was a reflection, you know, the will of the people. Yes, former president, head of state rather, IBB has come and acknowledged that, yes, looking at the figures, the late Moshood Basharon Abiola did win that election. Yes, he's finally admitted, but it is clear that not just haste, but a dangerous and perhaps a very devastating action was taken to undermine Nigeria's democracy. And it's really unfortunate. And I think that admittance should not be swept under the carpet, that where the votes of Nigerians, you know, and their will, was taken from them by a military head of state, it's really unacceptable, because that election did produce a leader that enjoyed the vast majority and support from a lot of Nigerians. So even though it's too late in the game, but I don't think it is something that we should sweep under the carpet.
Mr. Aitodo, so let's explore some of the things you have reeled out in this report. Maybe give you some time to look at it. But I'm interested in your findings and what actually drives turnout. So in looking at the spectrum of what you do, what you have done with this report as quickly as possible, I want you to especially speak to that finding, what drives turnout.
First, thanks, Geoffrey. I think we need to acknowledge that Nigeria's democracy is the biggest in Africa, but it has the lowest turnout, and that isn't a good development. And there are a few issues that drive turnout. So what we did in this new research is to propose a theoretical framework for understanding turnout. First, you need to look at autonomy factors, and autonomy factors just relates to, there are certain factors that determine the capacity of voters to make individual choices, either as a result of their interests, their knowledge, as well as their motivations. One of them is confidence in the electoral process. If people don't trust that their vote will count, they will not show up at elections. The second relates to access, to voting services. In the build-up, to the 2023 elections, INEC introduced a lot of reforms. And one of the paradoxes that we are explaining is that how come that despite the reforms, despite BVAS, despite IREF, despite new polling units that were created to take polling stations close to people, we still recorded 27%, turnout at the last election. So there is a disconnect between the higher level of voter registration as well as the turnout for elections. The second was the whole concept of inducement. Colleagues, one of the revelations from this report is that even though, theoretically you can say vote buying and inducement enhances turnout, what this study has actually demonstrated, that vote buying and inducement does not deliver high turnout as people do expect. And lastly was the whole concept of responsibility. And responsibility just refers to what duty voters think they owe to candidates and parties. And from this study, it is clear that candidates, presented by political parties have or influence voter behavior. If a candidate is presented by a party that enjoys popular support, the chances that people will show up at elections is very, very high. But there are also issues relating to ethnic and communal affiliation. And we've seen that both the ethnic extraction of voters and their identity shapes how they come out for elections. So these are some of the factors that drive turnout, and we've highlighted also some of the challenges, and we can talk about some of the challenges that impede on the ability of people to show up at elections.
And Mr. Aitodo, this is quite telling, because if you consider the report on multidimensional poverty in the country as against what is particularly driving voter turnout, you wonder why the bulk of the poor are not turning out to derive economic incentive in order to be able to exercise their franchise. So it says a lot really about what drives the electoral process, what drives voter turnout during election. But let's go to another aspect of your report, which speaks to the reason for the declining voter turnout. And I wonder if this has, much to do with the confidence or the huge lack of it in the electoral umpire itself. But it's your finding. Speak to it.
Thank you very much. There are a range of factors that are driving the declining turnout in elections. The first one is the disillusionment with democracy. People are unable to connect their participation on election day with the quality of their livelihood. How do you explain that people go through all sort of harrowing experiences to cast their vote on the day of elections, and then the outcome even if it's a reflection of the people or not, there's no improvement in their lives. And so people are asking the question, why do we need to show up at elections? Does it really count? The second issue that we've highlighted in this report is that there are fundamental problems with our voters register. And this is where there's a lot of discussion that our voters register is over-bloated, that we do not have 93 million registered voters in our voters register. YIGA Africa, recently, we developed a statistical model for assessing whether our voter register is over-bloated or is underpopulated. And our finding is that, yes, there are migrants on our voters register, there are unqualified persons on our voters register, and there are errors on our voters register. But INEC needs to audit the voters register. So plus or minus, even if you look at the number of voters who shouldn't be on the voters register, we will still have recorded low turnout. But INEC needs to fix our voters register. The other issue is trust, in the electoral process. People are asking, the bigger challenge that we have for 2027 is whether people trust that their vote will count, whether the challenges with electoral technology, people still have confidence, in electoral technology. And I must say that there's a great need to look at how we build and restore public confidence, and it begins with a new INEC that is composed of individuals that do not have partisan leanings, individuals that have impeccable integrity, and individuals that have competence, because integrity and non-partisanship is not enough from our recent experience, that you need people who have skill to manage and deliver quality electoral services in a way that it inspires confidence on the part of people to show up to vote. The other thing is about electronic transmission of results. Nigerians are saying, if you do not transmit results electronically, if you don't use technology, it cannot inspire confidence that will drive people to cast their vote. Our study confirms that majority of Nigerians trust that electoral technology can fix some of the challenges in our electoral process, it can inspire trust, and it can drive them to cast their vote. But electoral technology is not a silver bullet, because it can also be used to undermine their votes.
As I was going to wind down, let's look at how do we reverse all of this. We know that at the end of December also, Professor Mahmood should be leaving office. Maybe other national commissioners should be leaving office as well. But I think Kayode has the next question.
It's okay, Jeffrey, and it just follows with what you were saying, Jeffrey. You said we need a new INEC. So I wonder, what does an INEC look like? So we have a chairman, as you said, Jeffrey. What does a new INEC that we need, that we deserve, and we ought to have, what does it look like? I know that there was some reprimand handed down to some commissioners who erred in the previous election. But is that enough for you, Samson? What does that new INEC look like?
A new INEC is an INEC that first, the process of the appointment needs to be reformed. That you need to remove the power of appointing the chair and national commissioners or resident electoral commissioners, from the president. And that's the whole proposal for the ongoing constitutional reforms. But the president, before he constitutes or appoints people into INEC, can he invite the public, to submit whether petitions against people who he proposes to nominate, or call on Nigerians to make proposals on the individuals that should make it to the commission? Secondly, we need to look, the constitutional requirements for appointment into INEC needs to be reviewed. Non-partisanship is one, but secondly, you talk about impeccable integrity. But I've also talked about the need to look at competence and skill. But then we need a process where, when people raise objections as to nominations, you can't have a situation where you are appointing commissioners that clearly have campaigned and are members of political parties in their previous life, perhaps even in their recent life. It doesn't inspire confidence in the electoral process. So Nigerians want to see individuals in INEC that are not members of political parties or even former members of political parties, or individuals that have integrity. And there are a lot of Nigerians with integrity. This process where we are capturing INEC at all levels by infiltrating the commission by people who have partisan leanings does not inspire confidence in Nigerians, and it also delegitimizes the outcomes of elections, because there's a reason why umpires are required to be non-partisan and neutral. When you have individuals whose integrity and partisanship is tainted, all you simply do is have elections managed by politicians, and that is not the whole conceptualization of what an election management body should be. That's what Nigerians have said. We hope the president will listen. We also hope the National Assembly will listen. But let me say this in conclusion, that the INEC chairman leaves in December. By December, we will be practically 1 year into the 2027 elections. Therefore, the president needs to ensure that the appointment process is done early so that the National Assembly can confirm, so we don't have any delay as to the transition between this current chairman and the next INEC chairman.
All right. Mr. Todo, I needed you to also realize, as to wind out, have less than a minute, so if you can do this in 30 seconds, if you will, on the issue of how to reverse low voter turnout.
I think the only way to reverse low voter turnout, one, you need to audit our voters register so we have the accurate figure of the number of people who are on our voters register. Secondly, we need governments to deliver the dividends of democracy to the people. You need improved governance outcomes. And I say thirdly, we need to jettison the use of the PVCs. Nigerians have said that you can use other forms, legally acceptable forms of identification. This thing where we say no PVCs, no vote is obsolete. The BVAS has the voters register. Nigerians who have their NIMC ID or their international passport should be allowed to vote at elections, so that this no PVC, no vote that is used to disenfranchise people, although the initial rationale is to sanitize the process, is now obsolete. Let's drop that and look at a way of ensuring once your name is on the voters register and you have a legally acceptable means of identification, you should be allowed to vote. That way you would see more people show up to cast their vote.
All right, Mr. Todo, I'm told we have a bit more time. So you talked about the new INEC, and if that means, you know, removing the appointment process of the chair and electoral commissioners from the apron strings of the presidency, can we begin to reflect on, you know, what the body language would be of that office from what former President Goodluck Jonathan said, you know, at that reflection conference organized by your group just a few days ago, where he said INEC chairs must begin to resign. Is it fully representative of, you know, what should be a more honest conversation coming from a former president, you know, whose exit from office had much to do also, you know, with the same man that was in the room? If you catch my drift of what I'm trying to say, Mr. Todo.
No, absolutely, Bukola, you're right. Yes, this week we hosted a regional conference just to reflect on the elections that are held in West Africa. And I think there is a consensus that the independence of electoral commissions is central to electoral democracy, is also central to political legitimacy. You cannot have an electoral commission that is subject, you know, to the directive and the dictates of the incumbent. What we've seen across the region is this excessive use of incumbency powers. And, you know, it's quite interesting that both gentlemen have a relationship because, yes, President Jonathan appointed Professor Jega, but both of them, you know, in their remark, actually reiterated the need to ensure the independence of the Electoral Commission. If you look across the last 10 years, 3 things have happened to INEC. The first one is that its financial independence, you know, have been undermined. Nigerians will be shocked to know that as we speak today, INEC has not received its full money for the 2023 elections. This is 2 years down the line. The way to undermine an electoral commission is to starve the commission of its funding for elections. And so it's not just the appointment, it's also the financial independence. And so we need to look at both the operational independence and the financial independence of the commission. And we are worried that one way that INEC is being captured and will continue to be captured if you don't have political leaders who act as statesmen is to deprive the Electoral Commission of funding to conduct elections. The second relates to this appointment. And President Jonathan was very clear that if the incumbent mounts pressure on commissioners, the chairman or resident electoral commissioners, the most honorable thing to do is to resign. We don't have a culture, of resignation in our own context. You cannot, put yourself in a position where you compromise your standards and your principles. And this is why we need individuals who have the courage to resist the political interference, from incumbents or even political actors into INEC. If INEC is independent, I bet you the kind of leaders, Geoffrey, you talked about, who are not qualified to be even hold local government chairmanship positions will not make it into public office. Right. And I think that when people have trust in the Electoral Commission, some of the excesses that we see will not be in our political process. Look at the political parties.
Interestingly, they're already passing votes of confidence here and there. So very interesting days and months ahead of us. Look forward to who will become the next chairman of INEC. But we have to thank you so much for the yeoman's job, for keeping these conversations on the front burner. We've been speaking with the executive director of YAGA Africa, Samson Itodo. Thank you once again. And from election management to student loan management. It's meant to be one of the legacies of this government. But how far has this gone to really deal with the issues it was set up to deal with? But Bukola has this next conversation. Bukola.
Yes. That is quite important if it were to, ensure security for the education system and, of course, guarantee the future of those we often call the leaders of tomorrow. So how well has the Student Loan Fund, NEL Fund, Nigeria Education Loan Fund, performed? And joining us for this all-important conversation is the Managing Director of the fund itself, Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, who joins us virtually this morning. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Bukola. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, I hope that the audio improves from here. So by faith, I'm going to fire the first salvo. So the last we checked, the fund had disbursed about 110 billion naira. Now, there are varied figures that would like you to clarify. 110 billion naira to 328,000 applicants. That was from December 2024. Now we're in February 2025. Please bring us up to speed on the progress of NEL Fund so far from that point. How many more students have applied? And, how is the fund itself faring with the disbursement and the management of the processes involved?
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning to you and to your audience. First of all, let me make a very important clarification. The fund has not disbursed 110 billion naira. What the fund has committed to in terms of applications pending is about 118 billion. But the actual disbursement, in other words, money that has left the coffers of the NEL Fund amounts to 22 billion in institutional fees and 13 billion in upkeep or pocket money. If we add those two numbers together, I think it comes to about 35 billion. So that is what has actually left the fund and gone out to the various beneficiary institutions on behalf of the beneficiary students. And of that 35 billion, just to confirm, the students have received about 13 billion so far, and that number goes up every month as we disperse. The figures you were referring to earlier relate, as I said earlier, relate to the committed funds based on the applications we have received. I hope that's clear. And again, just to quickly say, so we've had about 500,000 nearly registrants, people who have registered, and nearly 400,000 who have applied, but not necessarily received the funds. Okay, we have sound issues.
All right, sir. From there, the natural follow-up would be the aspirational target of the fund was 1.2 million within the very first few months of the start of date, but 328,000 or a bit or plus is a far cry. What are the issues that you find to be responsible for what seems to be, the hesitancy of students and by extension their families really to embrace this loan scheme?
Okay, so again, the aspirational target is to cover as many people as possible. We have about 2 million possible applicants, but never was it the case that that was going to be covered within the first few months. There is a process. We've been going for less than 250 days. The aspirational target is to reach the number of around 2 million, perhaps in 12 months' time. It could never have been achieved in a few months of the fund. The truth about it is that, when you introduce a new scheme, any new scheme at all, when you introduce a new scheme, people need to really understand it. They have questions to ask, especially if it's a loan where they have to pay back. They have questions to ask, they have clarifications to be made. People have to be very well considered. And NELFund also is a responsible lender. We're not here to force loans on people. Our target is to solve the problems that people may have in terms of their ability to be able to access education. We still have to recognize and respect that that is a voluntary process on the part of the applicants. Our responsibility is to make sure that as many people are aware of the fund as possible, and as many people know how to apply for the loans, and as many people as possible know what the real issues are in terms of the clarification, what it means for them today, what it means for them tomorrow. Our real target is to ensure that people who need this loan take this loan and understand it before they take it. There's really, the normal skepticism that people will have in any country in the world about any new scheme. People want to understand it. People want to know that it truly benefits them. And people want to be sure that they're doing the right thing. The President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, His Excellency has ensured that this opportunity is before the people, so that the people can really have options in terms of what they do with their education. It also helps to fund the tertiary institutions, which probably need the funding to be a little bit more definite than people just trying to sort of struggle to pay.
Mr. Sawyer, I know the last time we had a conversation, you did talk about how much exposure the fund is now, say, exposed to. So how much do we have now?
Well, in terms of exposure?
Yes.
Are you talking about financial exposure?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so we have about 120 billion naira that if everybody who's applied for this fund today were to get it today, which is not possible, if they were to get it today, we'd be looking to give out about 120 billion naira. But that is an anticipated target if you look at the numbers of people who have applied. Not all those people who've applied will get the loan. Not all of them will carry on with the process. Some of them will say, no, I don't want the loan. And also, we've got to verify that all of those people are indeed bona fide students and are properly qualified in terms of all the requirements that our guidelines ask for. So, but the truth about it is, as a responsible lender, once you're approached by students or by loanees to say, look, we want this loan, we try to ensure that we have an idea of what that means in the event that we have to pay it all out, so that we have the funds ring-fenced, so that we're not telling stories to people. That's what the President wants us to do. That's what we're doing. We want to make sure that we are fully on board with any potential promise that we make.
We're going to go to the issue of how the distribution quotient, or quota, if you will, maybe quota is not the right word, maybe how so far from your distribution of, or disbursement, I think that's the right word I'm looking for, which region is really, really aggressively tapping into this opportunity to get this intervention. Maybe you respond to that. And also the people that are supposed to make commitments to the fund, how much is that coming through? I know that the law clearly spells out who and who and who. Are you also having private donors as well in the mix? So 2 questions, if you can.
Thank you very much. They're 2 great questions. The first is that, you know, let me give you some context around the regional distribution question that you've asked. First of all, the poverty rates, the need for funding across the country differs vastly. You know, some of the countries in the South perhaps enjoy scholarships from their state governments. Some of them enjoy the fact that they have derivation that makes the states a little bit richer than others. There are also population differences, differences in attitude to the uptake of education, and also differences in attitude because of the cultural diversity of this great nation. Differences in attitude to the taking of loans. So what we have found, very interestingly, is that the South requires far more sensitization, far more knowledge about the loans. They're a little bit more reticent because they want to understand it a lot better, perhaps because a lot of them have other options in terms of paying their fees. In the northern parts of the country, and I'm speaking in very general terms, in the northern parts of the country that have been ravaged with insurgency and banditry and lots of, you know, deaths perhaps of parents, you know, lots of orphans. The truth about it is in the northern part of the country, there is a greater desire, a greater need to get back to normality, and the North has embraced this student loan scheme far more aggressively, but positively aggressively. The southern part of the country has been a little bit more reticent. Perhaps they've taken up educational loan schemes more aggressively in the past. And so they're a little bit more, you know, do we need it, don't we need it? We see more of that attitude in the South. So where we are today is that there is a sort of there's about a 70% uptake in the north, and in the southern part of the country, it's about 30%. But we're finding that at one point it was a
Oh dear. Okay.
All right.
Couldn't just let's hope that we can reestablish connection with Mr. Sawyer.
Question. I'm not sure. Could you just remind me what?
Yeah, I didn't get your. Yeah, I did ask 2 questions. One has to do with regional disbursement in terms of percentage, also contributors to the fund, whether they are private donors as well.
That's right. So look, by law, the funding for the Nigeria Education Loan Fund should come from the FIRS, the Federal Inland Revenue Service. So they have collections that they have made, and they're supposed to remit 1% of those collections to the fund. Fortunately, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, recognizing some of the bureaucratic challenges that all governments have, has interceded and has helped the fund to realize certain intervention funds. So we've had some funds from the TED Fund, about 141 billion. We've had about 10 billion in appropriation. We've had 50 billion proceeds of crime from the EFCC. So we're not struggling for funds at the moment. The FIRS is a responsible institution that is charged by law to give 1% to the fund, and I believe that that will come over time.
Well, Mr. Sawyer, I was reading the account of, bless you there. I was reading the account of a student, it was reported by FIJ, who had said that there's some sort of inconsistency, that his fees was about 70,000+ naira, and what was shown on the portal was 83 or so thousand naira. And I wonder if you've heard about that, what may be responsible for that? Because for them, they're saying, well, it's meant to be a loan, so they won't pay for something they didn't use, or at least what didn't come into to support their studies?
Sure. So, you know, this is a data-driven project, and essentially there's a lot of reliance on institutions to provide us with the right data about the students, about the fees. We are totally dependent on accuracy from the institutions when they provide us with the fees. If there's any inaccuracy there from the institution, it will take a while for us to pick it up. But we are working assiduously to ensure that there's data accuracy across the board. Does that mean that the system will always get discrepancies in data, in the provision of numbers? Anywhere you have a system as large as this. However, what I can tell you is that when these sorts of things come to our attention, we deal with it, we correct it, we get in touch with the institutions, we feed back to the institutions, and we correct them. This is a great question, and it's good that everyone's got a very close eye on this scheme, because it's important that where there are anomalies, where there are errors, where there are mistakes, it's brought to our attention. But are we going to have a perfect system? Probably not. His Excellency would like it to be perfect. He keeps driving us and pushing us to ensure that we're doing the right thing in the right way. You know, and that's what we're going to continue to strive for. The excellence that he was able to bring, and the sanity that the president was able to bring to the system in Lagos when he was governor there, using technology-driven solutions. He's driving us to do the same here.
Right.
The issues with technology is that you do have some of these blips, but it's a lot better than having people in between.
So just to be clear, I'd like you to walk us through the process, because I imagine there are other students who are facing this same situation. So when the money is paid, for example, on the portal, who's responsible for the figure? What I expect is that NELFund will be the one to put up how much was disbursed for the particular student, and not the school that will tell you how much it is. I don't know if you catch my drift. So who's responsible for putting the figure, that's 83,000 naira, on the portal? Do you rely on the school to tell you how much it is, or you just look at your own account and say, well, we disbursed 72,000 naira to this student, so that's how much will be on the portal?
Okay, there's a very simple way for me to answer that question, okay? But let me use a non-NELFund related example for you first. If I was a bank and you approached me that you wanted to buy a car, I would never be the one to determine how much the car is. The person selling you the car would say the car is X thousand or X million naira. You would then come to me to say, I want to buy a car for X million naira, can you lend me the money? We're never going to be in a position as NELFund to determine how much fees are. The institutions determine how much the fees are. They tell us to study engineering at University of Maiduguri. Student approaches us to apply for the loan. When they go to the portal and they see that figure for their course, that figure was put there by the institution. What we do is we ask the student to check that the figure is right. We ask them to check that the course is right. We ask them to check that the institution is right. We ask them to check that the level they're at, 100 level, 200 level, or whatever, is right. It is only then that they should apply for the loan, when all those figures are correct. But in terms of your question, who's responsible for the figures? It is not NELFund. Different schools have different courses, different levels, different. We have a system where they upload into our system all of those figures. The accuracy of those figures is entirely the responsibility of the institution. The student's responsibility is to check that what they're applying for is indeed the correct figure for the course they're doing. But NELFund is responsible for giving out loans against the figure provided by the institution and approved as far as applying for the loan is concerned by the student.
You know, it's a very important question, Mr. Sawyer, and we also hope that there's a mechanism for accountability just to ensure that, what the institution is recommending for a particular course is what has been disbursed to the student for payment. But you have 60 seconds to quickly respond to this one. And it's about repayment. I'm sure that you've had cause to talk about this time and again. The component of the Act requires that payment should be done 2 years after NYSC. Figures from the National Directorate of Employment are to the effect that 5 years after NYSC, graduates remain jobless. And there are other concerns also about past loan schemes that have crashed. Now, is the administration and the loan fund itself reflecting on these concerns?
Yes, of course. As a responsible lender, one of the things that you must do is think about how you can help your students or your loanees pay you back. It's a revolving fund. The truth about it is that there are other organs, institutions of government, and other economic policies that are being driven by the administration of President Tinubu to ensure that there is greater employability in this country, that there are greater numbers of jobs. One of the things that we're tasked with, for example, is to provide skills training. So we've been talking about academic training this morning, but NELFund is tasked also with actually training people in skills, which is what the country needs. But I'll say a couple of things to you. I have absolute confidence that the administration's economic policies will create jobs. You're right, there's a long history of great unemployment in this country. But this is an administration that is tackling that now actively. We're going to do our part. 2 years after National Youth Service Corps is when people are obliged to report their position as far as their ability to pay is concerned. They're not obliged to pay that at that time, especially if they don't have a job. We're looking to set up a job portal to help consolidate jobs so that people have the opportunities. We're going to do everything we can to make people more employable. That's our contribution to this. We don't want to give people loans so that actually they can't pay them back. The other thing I should let you know is that if we reduce the dropout rate in this country, employability will go up, will get better. We're also looking in the future to seeing what sort of relevance the courses people were lending money to has in terms of employability and in terms of contribution to the economy. All of these things will be streamlined over time. The president has thought this through very carefully. He's picked some of us to go and implement his vision. And I believe that we should be optimistic about the future. If we keep looking to the past to see what has happened in the past, there'll be depression about the future. People said this scheme would never take off. It's taken off. They said it wouldn't work. It's worked. They said people wouldn't get funds. They're getting it. So, this is the political will that sits behind this. And I would just urge you to and the audience to really think about a brighter future and really forget some of the things that have happened in the past that make people skeptical. I already indicated to you that many of the things that they said wouldn't be possible have happened. And I'll tell you, this scheme will not crash. The president is fully behind it. He's driving it. He's making sure that everything works towards making this a success. Thank you.
All right. Making your beneficiaries employable in the long term. We're going to hold you by that, Mr. Sawyer, and indeed the administration, because the test for the loan scheme is ongoing already. In another 4 years, we'll be seeing some of the consequences, which we all hope will be hopeful. We've been talking with Mr. Akintunde Sawyer. He is the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigeria Education Loan Fund, NELFund, who has joined us virtually from Abuja. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me on your show. Look forward to you holding me to the things I've said. Thank you.
And from managing student loans to managing culture and diversity. Stay with us for the next leg of our conversation. We'll be right back.
Let's talk about the intersection between identity, heritage, and cultural preservation through the lens of Halima Abubakar, who is a photographer joining us from Kaduna via Zoom. Halima, thank you so much for coming on the program.
It's a pleasure. Good morning.
All right, maybe you help us unmute your device so we can hear you. I guess you've done that already. So I'm always excited when I see our brothers or sisters from the North, especially when it has to do with a woman, doing things that are traditionally expected to be male-dominated, which is photography. But We've even seen the vice president, former vice president, Yemi Shibaja, is official photographer. She's a lady. So we've seen all of this. But your narrative, the narrative you're pushing, has to do with culture and cultural preservation. Talk to us why.
First and foremost, I think it's important to know where you're coming from. If you have no idea where you're coming from, there's really no way you'd know where you're headed. So know your roots and then learn to fly.
Okay, so tell us how you got into this photography. Let's begin with, before you choose the part of cultural preservation, how did you get into photography?
So I got into photography because I wanted to document and preserve cultural heritage. Growing up in the southern and western parts of Nigeria, but being from the north, gave me a sense of, curiosity, where it is that I started to find out or started to ask questions about my identity, where I'm from, who I am, and I just said, you know what? And as a child, I was always taking photographs in the family. And I think after studying mechanical engineering, I thought, you know what, this is not really what I want to do. Let me just go back to what it is I want to do. And that was how I started, documenting. I started documenting marks because that was what was very vivid at the time. I saw the difference and how, they intersected. We had marks from different places, different sizes, different shapes, different patterns. And I was very drawn to it. And it was a very personal story to me because my dad, has a mark and my granddad also had one. So I tried to give myself one, which was very interesting, but my mom was very upset about it. And I asked her why, but she didn't give me any response. And that pushed me to find out why. And I think that's how it started. So I just started to document a lot of things that I felt were, not common about my culture. Around me, and I thought it important that for the future generation and for posterity.
Halima, I'm interested in another aspect of your work, which is called Qualia. And for good reason. I grew up partly, surrounded by people from the north. And I recall back then, whenever a Hausa bride was being celebrated in the wedding anniversary, they would decorate her, with those tattoos. I've since, exited that particular environment. But I'm wondering from your work how far it has gone to preserve this particular aspect of Hausa culture. Is it still being embraced? And how far and wide is it being embraced, even beyond the frontiers of the Hausa culture, for the decoration of the bride and even, just generally as part of a unique lifestyle of people of the north?
Right, so thank you for that question. So Qualia, meaning adornment, is a very personal project, that I started as a result of coming close to the marks on my grandmother. And like I said earlier, I started documenting marks, which were more ethnic, and then I researched over, a decade, and I tried to see how these marks came about. Initially, it was as a result of, identity after the Civil War and all of that. But I then, researched further, and I was able to now see that there were different types of these marks. So we have the medicinal marks, we have the spiritual marks, we have the Qualia marks, which are the adornment marks. We have the tribal or ethnic marks, and, we have the medicinal marks as well. So I stuck on the Qualia marks because that was what I came in contact with, with my grandmother. And I saw that they weren't just mere, marks. They were literally intricate tattoos, that adorn her body and her face. And I was really intrigued by it. And when I looked, closely, I was like, but these are tattoos. And now you're saying we shouldn't have tattoos. I thought that was a contradiction. And when I started to ask questions, I remembered her telling me that it was, it was some sort of rite of passage at that you know, they were really young, their friends were doing it, and, you know, they just wanted to do it to adorn themselves. There were very interesting stories I was able to pick out, which centered around love, you know, and then there were also other stories that I was able to pick out, which are associated with her personality. But, you know, I went on and documented a lot of people who had those similar marks in her age group. And I realized that it was literally going into extinction, and these marks aren't done anymore. But interestingly, you know, I was able to relate it to how at the bridal, you know, tattooing process, which is called, you know, lele, decorate or, you know, make particular patterns for the brides and, you know, that. For me, I know that's the qualia, that's the tat anymore due to religious and that's of, you know, how it's done. And then at the same time, religiously, you know, in Islam, it's said that you shouldn't, you know, make any mark or harm yourself. Extinction, it's not done anymore. But, you know, it has evolved where it is acceptable Islamically, and then it's, you know, temporary. So it's not something that you do and it's permanent on your skin.
I don't know if that was a gotcha moment for you, at least speaking to the older ones who say, don't get tattoos. Like, you did it, so why are you telling us not to do it? Maybe it's from experience for them as well.
I know it was.
But I'd like to ask how you then view us as a people, because what the world views us as, or at least the majority of us, is this is, you know, a poverty. I mean, you've heard the poverty capital, and these people are really poor. But looking at our culture, our history, who we really are, do you get that vibe, that sense that we're poor people, or it's just a wrong definition, the yardstick being used to measure wealth for this part of the world? I don't know if you catch my drift, Halima.
Yes, I do. I think if we were really invested in our culture, we would not find ways to, you know, compromise our standards. Like I said earlier, I said, if you know who you are, you'd know where you're headed. Once you know, have that, you know, disconnect where it is that you really don't know where you're coming from or who you are, then you're lost. And because you're lost, you continue to, you know, look for something to hold on to just to define yourself. So I think that our culture is very rich, and it is something that we need to really pay attention to now. And the reason why I'm saying this is because we're losing it, we're lost, and we're struggling to literally find, you know, how we're going to navigate and push forward. So I'd say that we're rich, you know, as a people. It has to do with culture.
All right, as we begin to wind down, let's talk about the future of cultural photography and its economy. Because when you talk about preservation, there are two legs to it. There's a preservation that has to do with just pride. There's a preservation that has to do with robust sustainability for posterity to be able to enjoy whatever it is we're capturing today. Halima?
You know, yes, I'm with you.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying that it's important for us to, you know, look into the cultural aspect of our, you know, history and understand what it is. Documenting, preserving, like you said, is one side of it, but then it's also important for us to teach the younger generation to understand the importance of these, you know, stories, thereby attracting people, you know, from around the world to see and understand why it is we are who we are. So I think that it's timely because I remember a few weeks ago, I learned that, you know, history has been brought back into the Nigerian, you know, educational curriculum. And, you know, we just need to find ways to be able to tell the right stories so of where these stories have come, how we have come forward. Because if they have an idea of what things used to be before, they can, connect the dots and see how things have become now, and then they're able to know, the directions in which they can take. So knowing your heritage and understanding it gives you, the idea of how it is you can pick, remove and add, certain things to be able to move forward, in my opinion.
Alima Abubakar, thank you so much for the work you do, and we'll continue to check in. She's a photographer joining us from Kaduna. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will still stay with culture, but somewhere outside the country. Join us again.
Well, the conversation we're about to have now is more than just a conversation. And I'm not just using that cliche, more than just, yes, it's more than just a conversation. It's an art. It's a source of happiness, joy. It is Limbo. We're joined on the program this morning by Clifford Palmer, Kingfish of Limbo for All, joins us from Canada. And I bet you this conversation she'll get you on your feet. And we're going to be talking about how he's able to spread joy through Limbo, his story essentially. I'm sure you're wondering what is Limbo. Well, you get to find out very soon when we join Kingfish, as he's known, for that very interesting, intriguing, very difficult art of dance. Good morning, Kingfish. Hey, welcome to the Morning Brief.
How are you?
Great. I'm excited that this is happening finally.
Yes, this is happening, man. Waiting for this.
So, do you want to do your thing first? I know we joked and said, how low can you go? Do you want to do your thing, or do we start with your story?
You want to start with my story?
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah.
I see you have the whole accoutrement behind you, but talk us through your story. I know it's not easy to dance, like normal, easy dance, but you said, you know what, easy is simple, let me go for the very hard one. So what inspired you? Why are you doing this, and how are you able to spread joy through Limbo?
Well, for me, Limbo is a really unique dance that I enjoy doing, and spreading joy of Limbo. Like when I get underneath the Limbo bar, which I had stand in front of right now, the joy that I bring to people is just outstanding. Like the feedback you get, the excitement to see when you get down low and emerge, that the joy that I get from it is seeing that joy the audience get from it. They are the one feed me with that energy, keep me to keep going over these years. So Limbo is special to me, and I can see it's special to my audience. Wherever I go and perform, they always have a blast.
So tell us about, I can see you're all dressed and you're Jamaican, proudly Jamaican. So tell us about how this originated and how you got caught up in it, and now you are literally a cultural ambassador for Limbo.
Yeah, man. So, I was born in Montego Bay, Jamaica. I moved to the West, which is Negril, and that's where I started working on a boat over there. One of my jobs was to entertain tourists while they come on board from the resort. And doing the entertainment, Limbo becomes was just a part of it just for fun. And then I had a brother, he's come and visit on the boat. He brought a friend with him. The friend was a fire dancer. So he performed at the hotels, do the fire dance. And he said to me, hey, you want to make some money? You're really good at this Limbo. And he took me to the hotel, and when I got there, he said to me, hey, but when you do the last bar, you got to put it on fire. Man, I was scared. Like, I never done fire before, never seen it done before. So I give it a shot, and the applause was up the roof, and I was like, wow, I have something. So, Limbo was born for me there.
No, it's interesting reading some commentaries about Limbo. It is said that it is a type of dance that's accessible to all people of all ages. And, you have to go down low, so low that I'm wondering, is it really accessible to the elderly?
Well, the reason for me, for Limbo for All, I have it started at this high level right here as I stand in. This is where it started. So if you doesn't have to hear, I perform at old seniors' home. People sitting in their wheelchair, I get them wheel them underneath the limbo bar, and the joy they have just going underneath the bar in their chair it's outstanding. So if you can walk, if you can sit, you can also get underneath the limbo bar. So it doesn't have to go as low as possible to feel the joy and the love of limbo. So limbo for all is to show that it doesn't matter your age, you can still do the limbo. You may not go all the way to the last bar, but if you do one bar, it's a joy. And that's what Limbo for All is all about. Feeling the joy, feeling the love. Somebody hear about Limbo, never done it before, want to give it a try. I'm your guy.
There you go. So Kingfish, let's dive right in, pun intended there. So let's start with the very top bar. How does it work? Do not try this at home, okay? Except you're advised by a doctor. But let's just spread the joy, Kingfish. Let's do this.
I can say, yes, you can try this at home. In a safe environment, you can try. Limbo is like this. You're starting at the top. So the goal is you always eyes focused on the bar. Right now, I'm pretty much eye level with the first bar. So you want to limbo up yourself. You want to get underneath the bar. You're just going to walk it through. The first bar is simple. You walk it through. Keep your eyes on the bar. Voila. First bar. Easy. No stress, no problem on the body. You even can go backwards. Here we go. Yes. So then you take a bar lower, right? One bar down, next bar lower. I always encourage you to stay loose when you do the limbo. You do a little dance, whatever dance you feel like doing. That's make your body limber up, right? You get underneath the bar, do a little move, side to side movements. Be coming one with the bar, engage with the hard ends. Or if you're home, you just engage with your partner.
Keeping your eyes on the bar.
Nice and easy. You can always feel the vibes. You feel the rhythm, you feel the vibes, you feel the hard ends. Limbo, keep it nice and easy. You want to be free. You're going backwards. Backwards is something I just had in. You don't have to go backwards, but I just feel good doing that every so often.
Yeah, man.
Just have somebody have something else to look at, like, wow, you go forward, you go backwards. But limbo is cool. It's an amazing thing. Take it down.
Drop it.
Third lever.
Jeffrey's level.
Now it's getting intense now.
It's intense, but movements. Movements is the key. Movements, whether you're dancing, moving side to side, whatever you want to do. Lower you get, more concentrated you are. You're going underneath the bar.
Especially people that have stiff waist.
Like Jeffrey.
My waist.
Woo!
Good job.
Good job.
Good job.
You feel the love, you feel the joy, you feel energized, you feel excited. But it's all about movements. It's all about movement. Movements. I can go down, can go as low as I feel like. Just feel the joy, energy.
Wow.
That's
a lot of back work.
Backwards, let's see. Can I do that? I'm not sure. Give it a try.
Wow.
Wow.
Good job.
Yeah.
I feel it. We feel it.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
man. It's feeling good.
Yeah, man.
Oh dear.
Movement. It's all about movement. So can you in the studio, snap your hands, feel the vibes. Everybody up on their feet, dancing, moving, like the side
We
movements.
don't have the bar to limbo under, by the way.
Get the hips going. Yes. Now we go underneath.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
Don't think about it, just move your body. Listen to the music, sing oh and oh. Just move those legs.
Good job, good job, good job. We're getting there.
Anyone can do it, sing oh and oh.
Movements, all about movements.
That fire, feel the rhythm getting louder. Show the room what you
So for those who don't understand what's going on, it's called the limbo. How low you can go, bend down low. Let's Nigerianize it. Yeah.
You got the crowd going. How you just hope to be entertaining your wife, your loved ones. It's okay too. You can have it privately, you can have it publicly.
There should be a prize for this particular level. There should be a prize for it.
This you need your knees.
Go Kingfish, go Kingfish, go. Go Kingfish.
Yeah.
Do this.
Go Kingfish.
So the movements, always have the hip movements.
Okay.
Moving, gliding. It's like an eel in the water. Guys,
There's a lot of leg work and back work.
This is serious.
Wow.
Wow.
Amazing.
Lovely.
Don't tell me you're going down low again.
movements, movements, movements.
How long have you been doing this?
Yeah. So, if you enjoy Limbo, let me make some noise.
Woo! Woo!
It's like good live performance.
From Limbo for All.
Book your tickets.
You like, now, you're going to get the last bar. You want to see the last bar? It's
Definitely.
all the way down there.
Definitely.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kingfish is about to do the last one.
Can you move that camera just a little bit back? Yeah, here we go. That's good. Here we go. Nice. I like to get the hips moving side to side. We call it roll it.
Okay.
Roll it.
It's all part of the reflex, so keep the knees and the hips.
Yes.
That's a good way to look at it.
Once you're here,
You know, and I wonder.
too wide, you don't want to be too close.
I wonder how he does the leg work.
It's
away from the pole,
mastered
knees
this for
first.
years.
Keep your eyes on the bar, always.
I'll ask whether
See
there's
the
a special
bar?
footwear.
Yeah. I noticed that he's wearing rubber. See the leg.
Oh boy.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
You sustained it.
Wow.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Finally,
Yeah.
we crossed it.
You can do a little split at the end.
Now you're just showing off, Kingfish. You're really just showing off.
A little split.
Oh, dear.
Wow.
You're just showing off, Kingfish.
After all that
Like
stretching, he
Great
does a
job,
little
King.
stretching.
Fantastic,
Amazing.
fantastic, fantastic. Great job. How long have you been doing this?
Oh, I've been doing this over professionally 25 years, closer to 30.
Wow.
But I've been doing it, you know, for fun, maybe 5 years before that.
25 years.
It's kind of like seasoning my blood right now. So it takes a lot of work in the beginning, a lot of training, a lot of practicing. So I make it my own because I self-taught. Before I started Limbo, I never seen a professional Limbo dancer. So that's, yeah, I self-taught.
So Kingfish, we noticed that you have a unique footwear. Is it to make it easy for you to push your feet forward when you're going so low?
Yes, that's what's moving, right? Your feet, you always walk like this. When you do the Limbo, your feet turn to the side, and you move in your toes as you go, and that's what's glide you. It's your feet that glide you with your core muscles, with all the muscles from your thigh muscles, your abs muscles, and concentration. And you glide your body, your feet becoming one with the floor, and just glide through it. When you lower, it takes a lot of concentration. You don't want to use your back, you want to use your core.
Fantastic.
And the core strength is what getting you through. So before you do the limbo, it's very important to stretch, warm up your body properly, and that's gonna, and straighten your core. Whatever you have to do to straighten your core, that's gonna help you to be a better limbo dancer. So I've been doing that over the years. I developed the strength I need, I developed the confidence I need, and most of all, you gotta discipline yourself.
Amazing. It's beautiful to see. Kingfish, I'm going to be trying this and I'll be giving you feedback. Wish me the very best. But you find a way to combine two things I admire a lot.
You try the limbo. Encourage everyone.
Yeah.
Don't try to start from the bottom. I know originally when limbo started in the 1800s, what used to happen in Trinidad and Tobago in the 1800s, when they started limbo started from the last bar. They used to do that at wakes and funeral. And the goal is once the dancer travel from one end and emerge to the other side, it signifies the triumph of life over death. So, because when you get to the last bar, you're getting under, you have to hold your breath and concentrate. When you come out, that's when you breathe out.
Beautiful.
So that's what it meant, life over death, because it starts from the bottom. But in the late 50s and 60s.
Now we start from the top.
Female dancer from Trinidad also, named Julia Edwards. She's the one changed the order to make it more entertaining. And now we started from the top.
All right,
so limbo dance starts featuring all over the world. Movies,
amazing,
entertainment, hotels all over the world. So
just before we let you go, Kingfish, this has been one of my most interesting segments of the show, I must say. You combine two things that we love a lot, limbo and patois. So is there a way you can shout out to your fans across the world in that very unique tongue with patois?
Yeah, man. So if you're out there and you want to come to some limbo, just come out to all the Caribbean festivals. And if you have an event, it doesn't have to be Caribbean. I'm from the Caribbean. I'll bring the Caribbean to you. Whatever event you got, bring it on. We're corporate, companies, schools, weddings, birthdays, anything you have to do, Fishman is here, ready to do it.
And then,
so Jamaican style, bring the party, book me for your party, we bring the party to you, bring the vibes, make everybody happy. One love.
All right, Kingfish, I know that in Nigeria we have what we call Dirty December. Would you like to come to Nigeria anytime soon?
Well, I have no plans at the moment, but hey, now that I met you, we can arrange something.
Fantastic.
Nigeria is part of the motherland, you know?
Absolutely.
We all African. We all African. So it doesn't matter where we think we're from, Jamaica, Canada, America, England. We all African.
Kingfish.
We come down the pipeline, you know, so we embrace that. Don't forget we're brothers.
Definitely. Thank you so much, brother. We have to thank you for the great work you're doing. This is exercise, this is art, this is joy, a lot of things woven together in one. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been speaking with Clifford Palmer, Kingfish of Limbo for All. Thank you for all you do, man. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Patrick, and your crew. I hope you practice the limbo, and I hope I get to join you guys in Nigeria sometime and show my skill there, and we can set something up, get the Nigerian people to do some limbo, because limbo originated from the Africans. And that's why we're here today, spreading the joy of limbo for all, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
So let's limbo to what you're saying on the trends. Now, lots of things.
So people didn't know what limbo meant. We've shown you practically what limbo really is.
Woo.
Okay.
I actually feel exhausted watching it myself. I imagine if I was doing it.
And you didn't lift a finger.
No, I actually stood up to move. So,
Your 1% contribution, right?
That's all now.
So let's limbo into what petrol price is saying currently. Dangote refinery has announced the reduction of price of petrol, lowering it from 890 naira to 825 naira per litre. So Wisdom is the first user this morning.
So let's contextualize. This is wholesale price. Ex-depot price.
Ex-depot price.
So they will now add, the sellers, the retailers will add maybe 50 or 70, then you can now know the whatever it is.
So Wisdom says we want to see a drastic reduction in the price of petrol, just the way it drastically moved from 200 naira to over 1,000 naira. We expect a reduction that is impactful, not all these piecemeal reductions. So you see, one Nigerian echoing the thoughts of many more Nigerians there.
I think just not to bust the bubble of the Wisdom is to say now we operate a free market economy.
Yeah.
That means competition will drive down price, and the biggest cost component is the price of crude oil. Okay, so pray that crude oil price crash, but if it crashes, Nigeria will make less revenue.
So choose your
choose your evil.
Choose the way.
All right, I think this is coming from Ibik Hashmed Chima. More of it, please. That's why healthy competition is good and not monopolizing everything.
There you go. So I think we can move on to the next one, which is another talking point. And take a look at this one. It's about the EFCC actually arraigning former manager of the P Square Group, Jude Okoye, over alleged 1.3 billion naira fraud. It's not just their manager, right?
Is their brother? Their elder brother.
It's also their brother.
They're all siblings, all three of them.
This is their eldest brother.
Exactly. So you understand that this is beyond manager. Well, okay, you know what? It's the link between them is beyond manager. They're also brothers. But this is outside of the case. So take a look at what Adetunji Adewolu has to say about this. By the way, this is a moment being arraigned in court.
Okay, I think we can take the first comment.
Yeah. Adetunji says, is this a case of financial mismanagement or something deeper? This could have serious implications on both personal and professional levels.
And
go ahead.
Ola Bankole has this to say, this promises to be interesting. Let's watch as events unfold. I know that at official EFCC won't arraign if there's no compelling evidence.
Let's say it's an allegation until he's proven guilty. Choi Plus, the charges include acquiring property with illicit funds and converting foreign currencies through bureau de change operators to conceal their origin. So that's the revelation from this user as far as what the charges are. But I think we can move from there to a video in Imo State.
Okay.
Before we get to politics. Imo State residents, I think this Imo residents decry deplorable state of naked Hihiagwa, Obinze Road. They are demanding for government intervention. So this is Imo State. This is perhaps goes directly to Governor Hope Uzodinma, who is the governor of the state, to look into this road. The road is called Nekede Ihiagwa Obinze Road.
It's not a swimming pool.
It's not a swimming pool.
It's not a reservoir.
So he is the chairman of the
It's not a dam.
It's not a dam.
The chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum. I know he's at the NEC meeting as a caucus meeting. So your people are calling you to come and fix the road. Let's just take maybe one thought from Ayahu. They are busy adding tar to the road that leads to government towers that is already good. That energy could have been transferred to another area, to other areas, though the government might remember them soon.
Okay. I don't know. That should be a given. It shouldn't be like a hope of sorts. No pun intended there.
To go to the El Rufai.
Yeah, just the El Rufai bit. You know that former President Buhari was not at the NEC meeting. He said that he got the invite late. I think got it on Monday, and he couldn't start processing his trip. El Rufai was also not there, obviously.
And former governor of Rivers State was not there.
We don't know why he was not there. He hasn't spoken. We don't know his reason yet.
But people were expecting FCT minister to go for this.
As in Nyesom Wike.
I don't get it.
Nyesom Wike is
not a member of the APC.
Nyesom Wike is still a member of the PDP. At least we know on the record. He was at the Congress, South Zonal Congress, which is also debatable because the NWC had said that we had fixed it, but we postponed it or something like that. But they've done theirs. He's still a member of the...
But don't worry.
A good question is to go to ask the FCT minister. When the elections come in 2027, who is he going to be campaigning for? Let's say PDP now fields a southern candidate. Is he going to be campaigning for the president? Because he's advocating for South-South. Okay, the southern part. If PDP gives a southern presidency, the candidate of the party is a southern from the south, and Bola Tinubu, our president, also running. Who is he going to be campaigning for? It's a big question.
Very good question, but
Very
let's draw the
question
curtains at this point. We'll get those answers, definitely. Thank you for being a part of the show. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
We're back for the home stretch tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Bye-bye.